Imagine getting flagged for an IRS audit and being sent a notice like this one. It looks straightforward and you think, I'm gonna handle this on my own. But then the IRS reviews your response and sends you a tax due notice like this one, and you don't know what to do from there. Well, that's exactly what happened to someone inside my free actual tax law community who was kind enough to share with us all of the information provided so that we can go through exactly how I would approach the situation and determine next steps on how to stop the IRS from taking his money. And if you don't know me, I'm Jasmine DiLucci. I'm a tax attorney, CPA, and an enrolled agent. My day-to-day is actually running my CPA firm and my tax law firm, but I started posting on social media after a decade of practicing tax to show you actual tax law. So IRS audits come in a couple different forms. This IRS audit notice is a correspondence audit, which means it's done by mail and fax. So to have an understanding of this type of audit, let's quickly go through the 3 levels of IRS employees that handle IRS audits. The first is revenue agents, and this is who we traditionally think of when we think of an IRS auditor. They handle individual cases as a field audit on-site with taxpayers, and they have the most experience with audits, and these audits can take years. Second, we have a tax compliance officer, okay? They handle simpler audits, they have less experience than a revenue agent, and they're usually working their way towards being a revenue agent. And third, we have a tax examiner. They don't even meet you. They basically do a once-over on your response. If you have a copy of your receipt, you might be fine. If you don't have a receipt, that's the end of the analysis. There's no other thought process behind it. So who handles IRS correspondent audits like this IRS notice? Of course, I outlined this list because it is handled by a tax examiner. Literally on the notice, it says a tax examiner, and basically if you don't send them the support requested by the time that they request it, they automatically deny your deductions. So that brings us to the case at hand. This taxpayer runs a limo company that provides transportation to private clients, and while it may feel common sense that a vehicle deduction should be allowed, by far the largest adjustment on the auditor's report was denying the vehicle deduction. So since it's not a field audit, after reviewing the documents, the IRS sent out a notice of deficiency without the additional back and forth requests you would usually have in a field audit. The notice of deficiency is the formal proposal that adjusts the tax due and gives you a 90-day hard deadline to protest it, and that's where this taxpayer currently is. He has 2 options at this point. The first is he can just leave it and pay it. But the second is that he responds with additional support, sends in a tax court petition to make sure he doesn't lose his appeal rights to dispute the tax. So, since we just covered how little the IRS typically reviews your situation in a correspondence audit, it almost always makes sense to appeal from a tax position standpoint. However, it's a personal decision on whether appealing is worth the time and energy. In this case, even though the adjustment was relatively large, with a $33,000 deduction reversed for the vehicle, the additional tax was partially offset by additional earned income credit, so leaving a tax due of $3,356. But what's perhaps the most difficult about these situations is it's almost never worth hiring a professional when the adjustment is this small, which is why I focus so much on transparency when it comes to working with the IRS, because having just a little bit of guidance can often put you in a position where you can handle these types of items on your own if necessary. So let's go through what option 2 looks like, which is disputing the tax due. So to file a tax court petition, you would want to file it electronically at the U.S. Tax Court Dawson website, which will walk you through the process. It of course has to be done before that 90-day deadline on the notice of deficiency. Now, a tax court petition sounds intimidating, but you will not be heading straight into court, and honestly, almost no cases should go to tax court itself, because after filing your tax court petition, you'll be given the opportunity to negotiate with IRS appeals, and if that doesn't work, then IRS counsel. If you're actually going to tax court, you're probably going to lose unless it's a very intentional decision with a very expensive tax attorney, because you typically get a more favorable outcome negotiating with IRS appeals and IRS counsel, since they're motivated to actually close cases, rather than tax court, whose opinions are public and often set precedent, so they very strictly adhere to the rules. So personally, if this IRS notice were mine, I would first send in the supporting information for just the vehicle back to the tax examiner. So that would be a clear cover page like this one, outlining my position and the support attached. There's no guarantee that the tax examiner actually looks at it before the tax court petition deadline or at all, but it is possible, and this is the submission that I would then have ready for IRS appeals if I decided to dispute the tax. So then I would want to make a decision on whether doing some additional work is worth that $3,500. Now, I think for a lot of people, it would be that it is worth it, and as long as you have the support for the vehicle and its use in your business, then you will likely get a favorable result taking it to IRS appeals, especially given the type of business here and how the vehicle is what generates the primary source of revenue. Now, you guys hear me talk a lot about the Cohen rule, which is an argument you can make in IRS appeals and with IRS counsel, which allows you to estimate expenses when you lack proper documentation. However, the Cohen rule is meant as a way to get an equitable solution. It is not meant as an offensive sword that tax court has to apply, and most importantly, it excludes IRC 274D expenses, of which vehicles are a part of that list. So, going to IRS appeals with the Cohen rule for a vehicle is not a great tax position. It would be much better to find or even recreate a mileage log, as well as make sure you have the purchase document. So I hope this case study was helpful. Please let me know in the comments if you want to see more examples like this one, and if you want to learn more to protect yourself from IRS problems, then you should join my free tax community where I deep dive into actual tax strategy, actual tax law, and provide actual free help. And as always, for actual tax law from a tax attorney, subscribe.